It started with a party. Not a battle, not a prophecy, not a god coming down from the sky with a warning. A party. A wedding, actually. The sea goddess Thetis was marrying a mortal man named Peleus, and every god in the universe was invited. Every god except one. Her name was Eris, the goddess of chaos, the goddess of things falling apart. And when she found out she had been left off the guest list, she didn't scream, she didn't cry. She did something much worse. She walked into the party uninvited, smiled, and tossed a single golden apple onto the table. On it were 3 words: for the fairest. 3 words, that's all it took. 3 goddesses reached for the apple at the same time. Hera, the queen of the gods, Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war, and Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty. Each one believed the apple was meant for her, and none of them was willing to back down. They argued, they shouted, they threatened, and finally they turned to Zeus and asked him to decide. But Zeus was smart enough to know that no matter who he picked, the other 2 would make his life a nightmare. So he did what powerful people always do when they don't want to take the blame. He passed the problem to someone else. He sent the 3 goddesses to a young prince named Paris, the son of King Priam of Troy. Paris was handsome, charming, and completely unaware that the decision he was about to make would destroy his entire city and kill almost everyone he loved. Each goddess offered him a bribe. Hera offered him power. She said she would make him the most powerful king in the world. Athena offered him wisdom and victory in every battle he would ever fight. And Aphrodite leaned in close and whispered the one thing that no young man can resist. She promised him the most beautiful woman in the world. Paris chose Aphrodite, and with that single choice, made by a boy who didn't understand what he was agreeing to, the clock started ticking on the destruction of Troy. The most beautiful woman was Helen, but there was a problem. She was already married. Her husband was Menelaus, the king of Sparta, one of the most powerful men in Greece. And Helen wasn't just any wife. Before she married Menelaus, dozens of the greatest warriors in Greece had come to compete for her hand. They were all rejected except Menelaus. But before they left, they made a pact, an oath. Every man who had tried to marry Helen swore that if anyone ever took her away, they would all go to war to bring her back. Every single one of them. So when Paris sailed to Sparta, walked into Menelaus's palace as a guest, and then left in the middle of the night with Helen, he didn't just steal a man's wife, he triggered the most dangerous promise in the ancient world. The question that people have argued about for 3,000 years is whether Helen went willingly. Some say Aphrodite cast a spell on her and she had no choice. Others say she fell in love with Paris the moment she saw him. Others say she was taken by force. The truth is, the story works no matter which version you believe, because the result was the same. She was gone, and every king and warrior in Greece was now bound by an oath to get her back. Menelaus went to his brother, Agamemnon, the king of Mycenae. Agamemnon was the most powerful king in Greece. Not the best, not the wisest, not the most loved, the most powerful. And the moment he heard what had happened, he saw an opportunity. This wasn't just about Helen. This was about control, about showing the world that no one could insult Greece and survive. Agamemnon called the oath. Every king who had sworn it was now obligated to send ships, men, and weapons. 1,000 ships gathered at the port of Allis. 1,000 ships, the largest military force the ancient world had ever seen. And at the front of that fleet stood the man who would become the most famous warrior in human history, Achilles. Achilles was young, impossibly fast, nearly invincible. His mother, the goddess Thetis, had tried to make him immortal by dipping him in the river Styx as a baby. She held him by his heel, and every part of his body that touched the water became impervious to harm. Every part except that heel. But Achilles didn't come to Troy for Helen. He didn't care about Helen. He didn't care about Menelaus or Agamemnon or the oath. Achilles came because his mother had told him a prophecy. He had two choices. He could stay home, live a long and quiet life, and be forgotten. Or he could go to Troy, fight the greatest war the world had ever seen, die young, and be remembered forever. He chose to be remembered. And so the fleet sailed across the Aegean Sea toward the city of Troy. Troy was not some small village. It was one of the most powerful cities in the ancient world. Its walls were enormous. Some said they had been built by the gods themselves. The city sat on a hill near the coast of what is now Turkey, guarding the entrance to a strait that controlled trade between the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. Troy was rich, fortified, and ready for war. Its greatest defender was Hector, Prince of Troy, Paris's older brother, and in almost every way the opposite of Paris. Where Paris was reckless and selfish, Hector was responsible and honorable. Where Paris started the war with a thoughtless choice, Hector would spend the next 10 years trying to protect his city from the consequences of that choice. Hector didn't want this war, but he loved his city, his family, his people, and he would fight to the death for them. The Greeks landed on the beaches below Troy, and they expected a quick victory. They had 1,000 ships, they had Achilles, they had the greatest warriors of their generation. But Troy did not fall, not in a week, not in a month, not in a year. The war lasted 10 years. 10 years of fighting on the same beaches, 10 years of charges against walls that wouldn't break, 10 years of men dying in the dust, day after day, while the gods watched from above and picked sides like it was a game. Because to the gods it was a game. Aphrodite supported Troy because Paris had chosen her. Hera and Athena supported the Greeks because Paris had rejected them. Apollo supported Troy. Poseidon went back and forth. Zeus tried to stay neutral but kept getting pulled in. The gods didn't fight the war, but they manipulated it constantly, tipping battles, saving favorites, letting others die. And the man on the ground paid the price. By the 10th year, both sides were exhausted. The Greeks were camped on a beach far from home, sick of fighting, sick of each other. And then, something happened that nearly destroyed the Greek army from within. Not a Trojan attack, not a plague sent by the gods, something worse. Agamemnon and Achilles had a fight. Agamemnon had taken a woman as a war prize, a priest's daughter. When the priest begged for her return and Agamemnon refused, Apollo sent a plague that started killing Greek soldiers by the dozens. Achilles confronted Agamemnon publicly, telling him to give the woman back. Agamemnon, humiliated, agreed. But to reassert his authority, he took Achilles' own war prize, a woman named Briseis. It was a power move, a petty, arrogant, unnecessary power move, and it broke something in Achilles. Achilles didn't just get angry, he stopped fighting. He pulled his entire army, the Myrmicons, out of the war. He sat in his tent on the beach and refused to move. The greatest warrior in the world, sitting out the greatest war in history because his pride had been wounded. And without Achilles, the Greeks started losing. Hector led charge after charge against the Greek camp. The Trojans pushed the Greeks all the way back to their ships.
Men were dying by the hundreds. The entire war was on the verge of collapse. That's when Patroclus made his decision. Patroclus was Achilles' closest companion. Some say they were lovers. Some say they were brothers in everything but blood. What is certain is that Patroclus was the only person Achilles truly cared about. And Patroclus couldn't stand watching his friends die while Achilles saw it. He went to Achilles and begged him to fight. Achilles refused. So Patroclus asked for the next best thing. He asked to wear Achilles' armor and lead the Myrmicons into battle himself. If the Trojans thought Achilles had returned, they would panic. It might be enough to turn the tide. Achilles agreed, but Achilles gave Patroclus one warning. Push the Trojans back from the ships and then stop. Don't chase them, don't go near the walls, don't push your luck. Patroclus didn't listen. He put on the armor, he led the charge, and it worked. The Trojans saw what they thought was Achilles, and they ran. Patroclus pushed them back across the battlefield. He killed Trojan after Trojan. He felt invincible. He felt like Achilles. And in that feeling, he forgot what he was. He pushed all the way to the walls of Troy. And Hector was waiting. The fight was short. Hector killed Patroclus. He stripped the armor from his body, and the news reached Achilles. What happened next was not heroism, it was rage. Achilles screamed. He tore at his own skin. He collapsed in the sand. The man who had refused to fight over pride now couldn't stop fighting because of grief. His mother brought him new armor forged by the god Hephaestus himself, and Achilles walked out onto that battlefield and became something no one had ever seen. He killed everything in his path. Trojans ran from him like animals. He chased Hector around the walls of Troy 3 times, 3 full circles around the city, and then he caught him.
The duel was not long. Achilles drove his spear through Hector's throat, and then, still burning with grief and fury, he tied Hector's body to the back of his chariot and dragged it through the dirt for 12 days, around and around the walls of Troy, in front of Hector's father, in front of Hector's wife, in front of his infant son, who watched from the walls and didn't understand why his father wouldn't get up. It took King Priam himself, the old king of Troy, to end it. He did something no one expected. He walked alone into the Greek camp at night. He knelt before Achilles, and he kissed the hands of the man who had killed his son. He said, "I am doing what no man has ever done. I am kissing the hands of the man who killed my child. Please, let me take my son home." And something broke in Achilles. Not his pride, not his armor, something deeper. He looked at Priam and saw his own father, old and far away, waiting for a son who would never come home. He wept, and he gave Hector's body back. That moment is the heart of the entire war. Not a battle, not a victory, a moment of mercy between 2 men who had every reason to destroy each other. But the war didn't end there. Achilles went back to fighting, and then Paris, the prince who had started it all, the one who had stolen Helen, the one who had barely fought in the entire war, drew his bow. Apollo guided the arrow, and it struck Achilles in the one place where he could be killed. His heel. The greatest warrior who ever lived, brought down by the weakest prince who ever started a war. There is something almost cruel about that, as if the universe was making a point. Glory doesn't protect you. Nothing protects you. You chose to be remembered, and this is the price. After Achilles died, the Greeks were desperate. 10 years of war, their greatest hero dead, Troy still standing. They needed something new.
Not strength, not courage. They needed cleverness. And that's where Odysseus stepped in. Odysseus was not the strongest Greek. He was not the bravest, but he was the smartest. And he came up with a plan that was so insane, so audacious, that it either had to work perfectly or fail completely. He built a horse, a giant wooden horse, hollow on the inside, big enough to hold a small army. The Greeks placed it on the beach in front of Troy. Then they burned their camp, boarded their ships, and sailed away. The Trojans woke up the next morning to silence. For the first time in 10 years, the beach was empty. The Greeks were gone. All that remained was a massive wooden horse. There was a debate. Some Trojans wanted to burn it. A priest named Laocoon drove a spear into the horse's side and shouted that it was a trap. A princess named Cassandra, who had been cursed by Apollo to see the future but never be believed, screamed that soldiers were inside. No one listened to her. No one ever listened to her. Instead, the Trojans listened to a Greek spy named Sinon, who had been left behind on purpose. He told them the horse was an offering to the gods, and that bringing it inside the walls would protect Troy forever. They dragged the horse through the gates. That night, Troy celebrated. They drank, they sang, they laughed. After 10 years, they believed the war was over. They believed they had won. And in the middle of the night, while the city slept, a hidden door in the belly of the horse opened quietly. Greek soldiers climbed out, one by one. They moved through the dark streets. They opened the gates. And outside, the Greek army, which had only sailed around the corner, was waiting. What happened next was not a battle. It was a massacre. The Greeks burned Troy to the ground. They killed King Priam at his own altar. They threw Hector's infant son, Astyanax, from the walls of the city because they were afraid that one day he might grow up and seek revenge. They took the women as slaves. They desecrated the temples. They destroyed everything. Helen was found in the city. Menelaus came to kill her. Some say he raised his sword and looked into her eyes and couldn't do it. Some say he never intended to kill her at all. Either way, she went back to Sparta with him, and they lived together for the rest of their lives. The woman who launched 1,000 ships went home, and history never tells us if she was happy. Troy burned for days. The smoke could be seen for miles. A city that had stood for centuries, that had walls built by gods, that had survived 10 years of the greatest army ever assembled, fell in a single night because of a wooden horse and a lie. And the gods, watching from above, felt nothing. Or maybe they felt everything, and that's why they made the Greeks pay for what they had done. Because getting home turned out to be almost as hard as winning the war. Storms destroyed half the fleet. Agamemnon made it home only to be murdered by his own wife. Ajax went mad and killed himself. And Odysseus, the man whose cleverness had won the war, spent the next 10 years lost at sea, fighting monsters and gods at his own exhaustion, trying to reach an island he had left 20 years before. The Trojan War lasted 10 years. The journey home lasted another 10, and by the end of it all, almost no one was left. That's what the Trojan War really was. Not a story about heroes, not a story about glory, a story about what happens when pride, beauty, and power collide, and ordinary people pay the price. A story about gods who play games with human lives, about kings who sacrifice their own children for favorable winds, about warriors who choose fame over a long life and then discover too late that fame is just a word people say after you're dead. The Greeks told this story for 3,000 years, not because they admired the warriors, because they understood something about human nature that we still haven't learned. Every war starts the same way,